I got cheated on by my girlfriend. When I kicked open the door, I saw her with another guy, my best friend. I went crazy, smashing furniture all over the place. Then I noticed someone else hiding in the closet. It was another one of my good friends. Don't get the wrong idea, he said. I wasn't involved. I was just the cameraman. I grabbed his phone. Oh, really? And you guys are live streaming this, huh? Just a few hours before all this happened, I had received some other devastating news. I was staring at the medical report in my hand, unable to believe what the doctor was telling me. The doctor said the brain tumor was growing rapidly. Doctor, can this be removed with surgery? I asked. He adjusted his glasses and was silent for a moment. The tumor's location is not ideal. To be honest, the success rate of the surgery is very low. How low? I asked. He didn't say anything but held up one finger. 1 in 10. I asked. 1%, he replied. Despite his serious expression and heavy words, I felt like he was joking. Is there any chance this could be a misdiagnosis? I asked. The doctor glanced at me. If you don't believe me, you can get a second opinion at another hospital. I went to a second hospital, then a third, and each one gave me the same answer. I was devastated. The doctors, whether directly or indirectly, all conveyed the same message. The success rate for this kind of brain tumor surgery is almost zero. They advised me to enjoy my remaining time, eat what I like, and keep my spirits up. Maybe a miracle would happen. I threw the medical report on the ground and crouched in a corner, pulling at my hair in agony. If things went well, I might have 6 months left. I'm only 26, and my life is already on a countdown. The phone rang. I answered it. It was my girlfriend. Hey, honey, she said. I feel like having shrimp tonight. Can you get some for me? My girlfriend's name is Mary. She's really beautiful. Watching her eat with such enjoyment, I couldn't help but smile a little. Aren't you going to eat? She asked. I'm not hungry, I replied. Well, if you're not hungry, I'm going to eat it all, she said, as I placed the neatly peeled shrimp into her bowl. Honey, I want to go shopping tomorrow, she said. Okay, I agreed. I scratched the back of my head, trying to find the right words. Mary, I need to tell you something. I'm sick. She put down her chopsticks. You're just making excuses because you don't want to go shopping with me. No, it's not that. I have a brain tumor. It's incurable. You're lying, she said. I took the medical report out of my bag and pushed it in front of her. She stared at it for a long time, then swallowed the last bite of shrimp. Tears started streaming down her face. Why is this happening? She cried. Mary, I've thought about it. I have about 6 months left. I want to spend this time living well. Will you travel with me? Where do you want to go? She asked. Anywhere. I have over $700,000 in savings. It's enough. But if you spend all the money, what will I do? She asked. I felt a bit disappointed. How could she be thinking about herself at a time like this? Then again, I've been taking care of her all these years. It's only natural she'd worry about her future. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was my 2 best friends, Tom and David. I had already messaged them about my situation. Are you sure it's not a misdiagnosis? Tom asked. No, it's not. I've been to several hospitals, I replied. So, what are you planning to do? He asked. I sighed. I want to travel a bit, spend all the money. I don't want to die with money left unspent. But what about Mary? Tom asked. She hasn't found a job yet. Aren't you going to leave her something? Who else will you leave it to? Your parents are gone, Tom said. Mary pouted and quietly agreed. I laughed bitterly. I'm dying. Can you guys think about me for a change instead of just the money? I just want to relax and travel a bit before I go. Is that so wrong? Tell me, is that wrong? Seeing how agitated I was, David quickly stood up to calm me down. Hey, they didn't mean it that way. You're overthinking it. It's my money. I earned it. Can't I spend it how I want? I asked. Mary slammed the table hard. You said you'd take care of me. She grabbed her bag and stormed out of the house. Tom patted my shoulder. I didn't mean it like that. I'm sorry. David finished his drink. Don't be like this. Talk to Mary properly. Everyone's just upset. After they left, I I poured myself a glass of the strongest whiskey and started reminiscing. David and Tom were my college friends. After graduation, we all stayed in the same city and remained close. Mary was the most beautiful girl in our department. By all accounts, I wasn't a match for her, but my persistence paid off, and I finally won her over. After graduation, she never found a job, and I tried my best to keep my promise to take care of her for life. What I didn't expect was that even when I'm on the brink of death, she's still worried about the money. She didn't even suggest using the money for treatment instead of travel. It was midnight when Mary came back, crying. Her tears softened my heart again. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I was in a bad mood. I shouldn't have taken it out on you." She threw her arms around my neck and cried even harder. "Please don't die. You promised to take care of me forever. How can you take care of me if you're gone? Please don't die." I gently patted her back. "It's okay. It's okay. It doesn't necessarily mean I'll die. It's okay." I knew Mary didn't love me that much, but we were still a couple. Maybe I should just leave the money to her. What good would traveling do in my final days anyway? Maybe they were right. Instead of wasting the money, I could leave it to Mary. It would be a way to honor our love. After the brain tumor diagnosis, my health deteriorated rapidly. I lost the motivation to work and lived off my savings. Mary had expensive tastes, and at this rate, I wouldn't be able to leave her much. What would she do after I died? Even if she still had her parents, what would happen when they were gone too? "Mary, maybe you should find a job," I suggested. She paused her game and looked at me in disbelief. "What do you mean?" "I just think that after I'm gone, you need a way to support yourself." To my surprise, she didn't get angry. She nodded calmly. "Don't worry. I can take care of myself." She actually went out and found a job. She even started showing me her bank statements to prove she was earning money. You had an epiphany pretty quickly, I thought. Overall, it was good that she had a job, but I didn't know what kind of work she was doing. She worked at nights and came home around dawn. When I asked her about it, she wouldn't say. She always looked exhausted and went straight to bed. After a while, I started to worry. I decided to follow her one night to see what she was really up to. Mary walked into a hotel with a suitcase, taking several turns before entering a room. Soon, I heard unmistakable sounds coming from inside. I kicked the door open, my eyes red with rage. Mary was dressed in a provocative nurse outfit, if you could even call it that. It was just a nurse's hat and white stockings, with nothing else on. She held a small black whip in her hand. Tom was handcuffed, his eyes filled with panic, and black tape covered his mouth, rising and falling with his frantic breaths. His feet were also tied to the bed. I pointed my finger at Mary, then at Tom. "Really? You two are doing this to me?" Tom struggled, trying to say something through the tape. Mary, hiding behind the curtain, whispered, "He wants you to listen to his explanation." "Great," I said sarcastically. I kicked the wardrobe, and a heavy thud came from inside. When I opened it, David was there, looking embarrassed. "I wasn't involved. I was just the cameraman," he said. I grabbed his phone, and the screen was filled with comments. I accidentally hit the reverse camera button, and my furious face appeared on the live stream. People in the comments were saying things like, "Is this the husband?" and "This can't be real, right? This is too intense." I punched David in the face, causing blood to spurt from his nose and mouth. Then I jumped on Tom, landing punch after punch. Realizing the position was too disgusting, I stood up and kicked him repeatedly. Mary ran over and pushed me off. "Are you crazy?" "Yes, I am crazy. Didn't you tell me to find a job? Isn't this a job?" she shouted. I was so furious I couldn't speak. Since I couldn't find the words, I didn't say anything. I grabbed Mary by the hair and slapped her. Tom and David rushed over to intervene. "Come on, try to stop me. I only have 6 months left anyway." The two of them stopped in their tracks as if they had hit the brakes. The room fell silent, except for Mary's sobbing. Suddenly, I lost all desire to argue with them. It felt pointless. I glanced at the live stream on the phone again. The viewer count had skyrocketed, and the screen was flooded with comments. I smashed the phone to pieces. When I was in high school, my parents died in an accident. I had little contact with relatives. After graduating from college, I got together with Mary and focused solely on making money. Looking back, it seems pretty pathetic. What was the point of earning so much money? I was in my 20s and had never even seen the ocean once. I left the room and bought the earliest flight ticket, heading south alone. I stopped taking my medication and didn't seek any treatment. I traveled from city to city, staying a few days in each place before moving on. Eventually, I arrived in Hawaii and realized I genuinely liked it there. Dying in this place didn't seem so bad. During the day, it was fine, lots of people and activity. But at night, back in the hotel, I felt a deep sense of unease. I hated the feeling of quietly waiting to die alone. I came up with a plan. Go to a bar, drink until I was tipsy, then go back and pass out. I repeated this routine for a week. Then I met her. One night, I had drunk too much and was sitting by the beach, trying to sober up. The summer night's breeze felt nice. I turned my head and saw someone not far away, holding a large bouquet of flowers. Fueled by the alcohol, I walked over to strike up a conversation. "You're selling flowers this late?" I asked. She looked surprised. "Yes." I took a closer look at the girl in front of me. She wore a slightly yellowed but clean t-shirt. Her shorts didn't quite match the top. She had short hair with bangs that covered her eyebrows. She was quite pretty, but her eyes were unfocused, and she tended to turn her ear towards people when she spoke. She was blind. I sighed. "We're both unlucky ones, aren't we? How many flowers do you have left?" I asked. She seemed to understand my intention. "Thank you, but if you want to buy, just get one. Buying too many would be a waste." I rubbed my nose. "I can use them. I want to give them to someone." She tilted her head and smiled sweetly. "I've met many kind people like you. Thank you so much. I can sell you one, or even give you one." I bought a single rose and chatted with her for a bit. Then I dusted off my pants and walked deeper into the beach. It was past midnight, and there weren't many people around, but there were still a few. "Hi, can you do me a favor?" I asked a passerby. "Could you buy a flower from that girl over there? I'll give you the money." "Hi, I have a request. Can you buy a flower from that girl? She's my friend, and I want her to finish selling her flowers quickly." One by one, people bought flowers from the girl. To my surprise, none of them came back to ask for reimbursement. They just took the flowers, waved at me happily, and walked away. The girl tilted her head in confusion for a few seconds, then bowed in my direction, packed up her things, folded her cane, and walked into the night. How did she know I was in this direction? I mumbled to myself, but there was no answer. That night, I slept soundly, without feeling lonely or scared. I thought it was just a simple encounter. Hawaii is so big. What were the chances of meeting her again? But it seemed like fate had a rare moment of kindness, allowing me to experience a bit more of human goodness before I died. 3 days later, I was stumbling back to the hotel, feeling dizzy. Suddenly, a violent shaking sensation hit my head, and I collapsed by the roadside. This wasn't from drinking. It was the tumor. I didn't know how long I lay there before I felt a pair of cool hands gently patting my face. "Wake up. Are you okay?" I opened my eyes to see the flower girl anxiously shaking me. The streetlight above her head formed a halo, making her look like a lily emerging from the night. "Do you need me to take you to the hospital?" she asked. I struggled to get up, wanting to speak, but my mouth felt like it was filled with molten iron, burning and unable to form words. "Why are you sleeping here? Where do you live?" "I'll take you back," she said. She recognizes me? How is that possible? I thought. I cleared my throat for a while before I could speak. "How did you know it was me?" She smiled. "My nose is very sensitive. You have a unique scent." I sniffed myself. Apart from the smell of smoke and alcohol, there's nothing else. "I'm fine. I just drank too much," I said. "Let me take you home," she offered. "I don't have a home anymore," I thought, feeling a wave of sadness wash over me. I didn't say anything, but tears started streaming down my face. "Why are you crying?" she asked. I wiped my tears. "How did you know I was crying?" "Your tears fell on my hand," she replied. "Sorry," I said. She moved closer and sat beside me, opening her water bottle and handing it to me. "If something's bothering you, you can talk to me." I don't know why, But even though we had only met twice and were still practically strangers, I felt an inexplicable trust in her. I took a big gulp of water and started talking. I told her about my brain tumor and how I had less than 6 months to live. I told her about my girlfriend's betrayal. I went further back, talking about my parents and my childhood. She listened quietly, without interrupting. When I finally stopped talking, she asked, "Is there any chance it could be a misdiagnosis?" "You've watched too many movies," I replied. She laughed. "I'm blind. I can't watch movies." "Sorry," I said. She shook her head. "What's your name?" "Seth." "And you?" "Lily." I was silent for a moment, debating whether to ask. Finally, I did. "Were your eyes injured?" "My corneas were damaged, and my tear ducts too." "I envy you for being able to cry." "I can't even do that," she said. "Don't your parents take care of you?" I asked. "I'm an orphan. I've never met my parents," she replied. I stared at her face, realizing that her situation was even worse than mine. In 6 months, I'd be gone, but she would still be here, struggling and enduring life's hardships. "If I die, I'll donate my corneas to you," I said. She touched my arm and placed her hand on my shoulder. "You should focus on living. Being alive is better than anything. I've been blind for a while now. I'm used to it." "Have you been to the hospital?" I asked. "Yes, but they didn't have any corneas available. I have to wait." "How long have you been waiting?" She tilted her head. "About 6 months, maybe 7 or 8. I can't remember." Lily used her cane to stand up. "Let me take you home." I grabbed her arm. "No, let me take you home." We walked in silence for about half an hour until she said we had arrived. I looked around and saw a row of dilapidated houses. She took out a key and opened the door. "Do you want to come in for a bit?" she asked. I hesitated and checked my watch. "No, I don't want to bother you." "It's no bother. I live alone," she insisted. "It's too late." "Maybe tomorrow," I said. As soon as I finished speaking, I collapsed to the ground. When I woke up, it was past 3 in the morning. She heard me moving and felt her way along the wall to come in. "You're awake," she said. "Yeah," I replied, looking around but seeing nothing. "I brought you some water." "Drink up," she said. "Thanks," I said, reaching out. It was so dark that I accidentally brushed against her chest. I pulled my hand back as if I'd been shocked, my face burning with embarrassment. Sorry, I stammered. She got flustered, and the cup fell to the floor, spilling water everywhere. "It's my fault. I've been blind for so long that I forget to turn on the lights," she said, feeling around for the switch. I looked up as she pressed it, but the light didn't come on. "Maybe the bulb is out," I thought. "Is it on?" she asked. "Yes, it's on," I lied. "You're lying." "I can't see, but I can sense light," she said with a smile. "You should get some rest. There's water and some fruit on the table in the living room if you get hungry." I turned on my phone's flashlight and cleaned up the spilled water. Then I went to the living room. On the table were some shriveled apples and blackened bananas. I called out a thank you towards her bedroom. As dawn approached, I finally drifted off to sleep. When I woke up, she was already gone. I fixed the broken light bulb and filled her fridge with fresh fruit. After making sure everything was in order, I closed the door and left. For some reason, after meeting Lily, I suddenly felt that life wasn't so unbearable. There was still some light in the corners of the world. If Lily could live optimistically, why couldn't I? I stopped drinking and spent my days quietly sitting on the beach, watching her sell flowers. At night, I would follow her from a distance and make sure she got home safely. A month passed like this. One ordinary night, she reached her door but didn't go in. Instead, she turned around and tilted her head in my direction. "Do you want to come in for a bit?" she asked. I was startled. How did she know I was following her? Feeling a bit embarrassed, I walked up to her. "How did you know I was following you?" I asked. After losing my sight, my other senses became more sensitive. "Like my nose and ears," she explained. "All right," I said, entering her home again. She handed me a piece of paper with a phone number on it. "This doctor is quite famous. You should go see him. Maybe it's a misdiagnosis. Or even if it's not, you should still get treated." Holding the paper, I felt a mix of emotions. The first person to show genuine concern for my illness was someone I had only recently met. She then fumbled in her bag and pulled out a wad of cash. I don't know your financial situation, but here's $1,000. Consider it your salary for escorting me this past month. Get treated. If you can live, you should live. If the money isn't enough, we'll figure something out together. I sniffled, making sure this time not to let my tears fall on her hand. You have to go see the doctor. If you don't and you die, I won't accept your corneas. Realizing she might have said something wrong, she quickly added, you won't die. I took the paper but left the money. I promised her I would see the doctor. Honestly, it didn't matter much to me whether I went or not. Even if the doctor said I could be treated and live another year or two, what difference would it make? You have to go see the doctor. I'll ask him if you went, she insisted. As I left, Lily's voice echoed in the room. On the way to the doctor's office, my mind was filled with thoughts of Lily. Such a good person, living such a hard life. We still didn't have each other's contact information. I had thought about asking for it but didn't dare. I didn't want to form a deep friendship with her. The deeper the friendship, the more it would hurt her when I died. This girl didn't need any more suffering. The destination was a private clinic. After understanding my situation and looking at the scans from the hospital, the doctor's eyebrows never relaxed. These scans don't look right, he said. They're from a reputable hospital, I emphasized, putting extra weight on the word reputable. It's not that the scans are wrong. It's your condition that doesn't seem right. What's wrong with it? Let's take a new scan and see. Another scan? Yes, it's been a while since your last one. Let's see the latest situation, okay? After the scan, I sat in the chair waiting. The doctor said he had to step out to see a nearby patient and would be back soon. While waiting, I received a call from Tom. Why was he calling me? To see if I was dead? I answered, and he sounded frantic. Seth, where are you? Mary is in trouble. My mind went blank. I didn't even wait for the scan results. I immediately bought the earliest flight ticket. Tom explained that Mary was seriously ill and might not make it. She wanted to see me one last time. Lies. She probably just wants my money, I thought. I wasn't going back because I still loved her. I was just curious about what new trick she had up her sleeve. A bit of amusement in my limited time left wouldn't hurt. When I arrived at the hospital, Mary was lying in a hospital bed. Say what you need to say. My time is precious, I told her. I need to borrow some money, she said. For what? I'm sick. I need money for treatment. What illness? They haven't figured it out yet. Borrowing money before even knowing what's wrong? I scoffed. She got desperate. But I've been feeling really unwell these past few days. Seth, we were in a relationship. Please lend me some money. I promise I'll pay you back. I laughed bitterly and shook my head. Will you pay me back before I die? Just then, the doctor knocked and entered. Mary's test results are back. You need to step out, he said to me. I looked at her mockingly. I want to see what you're pretending to have. I'm not leaving. The doctor looked at both of us. Are you a family member? He asked me. I quickly shook my head. No. Non-family members need to leave, he insisted. It's fine. I'm not an outsider. I want to hear this, I said. The doctor frowned. What's your relationship with Mary? I'm her ex-boyfriend. Then you don't need to leave. She has HIV. It's better you know, so we don't have to notify you separately. I sat on the hospital bench, feeling a mix of emotions. I wasn't exactly depressed, but I wasn't happy either. As someone who was already dying, another terminal illness didn't make much difference to me. But it felt like fate was making sure I wouldn't survive, shooting me in the heart and then making sure with a headshot. Mary having HIV felt like karma, but did it make me feel better? Not really. To me, she was now just a stranger. Her life or death had nothing to do with me. Can you believe our luck? Tom said, sitting next to me, his forehead covered in sweat. I gave him a half smile. I'll go first and let you know what it's like after death. He gritted his teeth. What do you mean? I leaned back, hands behind my head, and stretched comfortably. I'm not afraid of HIV. Tom's lips moved as if he wanted to say something more, but then we saw David rushing over, ignoring both of us and heading straight for the doctor. Check me too, he demanded. Tom grabbed David by the collar. What do you need to be checked for? When did you two start this? I laughed out loud. The whole situation was absurd. You said sometimes you couldn't handle it physically, David stammered. I did it for work. The world in front of me felt extra surreal. The test done in the morning came back in the afternoon. I was fine. David and Tom both tested positive. I laughed at the test results for a good 10 minutes, tears streaming down my face. David lunged at me, ready to hit, but the security guards held him back. As he was being dragged away, he shouted, "How long do you think you'll live? Even with HIV, I'll outlive you." Tom broke free from the guards and, to my surprise, didn't come for me. Instead, he stormed into the hospital room, grabbed Mary by the hair, and slapped her repeatedly. "How many people have you slept with? Where did you get this disease?" he yelled. David quickly tried to stop Tom, but seeing Tom's intense anger and hearing his furious words, he too got emotional and joined in, hitting Mary alongside Tom. It was quite a spectacle. I returned to Hawaii, but I didn't see Lily for several days. I wondered if she had something to do or had moved to a different spot to sell flowers. I even went to her house and waited outside for a few nights, but the lights never came on. Summoning my courage, I knocked on her door, but there was no answer. Maybe she had left. It didn't matter much. After a brief period of feeling down, I realized that not seeing her again might be the best ending. A few days later, I saw her outside a bar. She looked a bit lost, without any flowers in her hands. Her t-shirt was dirty, and her hair was messy. I rushed over, worried something might have happened. She sniffed the air, turned her head in my direction, and her lips parted into a wide smile. She stood up and threw herself into my arms. "Where have you been? I've been looking for you all these days." "I finally found you," she said. My nose tingled with emotion. "Silly girl, why were you looking for me? Why did you leave without getting the results?" "It was a misdiagnosis." "It really was a misdiagnosis," she said, her voice urgent. My mind was reeling. Half of it was because Lily had been looking for me for so many days, and the other half was because of what she said about the misdiagnosis. Really, she continued, swallowing hard. "You don't have a brain tumor. It's just a bit of bleeding. If you hadn't left, the doctor would have told you on the spot. But I went to so many hospitals, and they all said it was a brain tumor," I replied. "The doctor said this condition is easily misdiagnosed. The bleeding is serious but treatable. The doctor wants you to go back and see him," she explained. I hugged Lily tightly. She took a deep breath and slowly exhaled, wrapping her arms around my back and gently patting it. It's okay. I'll go with you tomorrow." On the way to the clinic, Lily and I held hands tightly, not letting go for a moment. When we arrived, the doctor gave me a stern look. "You finally came back. You really went far, didn't you?" he said. I rubbed my hands together awkwardly. I'm sorry. I had an urgent matter that day." The doctor took out the scan and pointed to the shadowy area. "This isn't a tumor. It's bleeding, but it does look a lot like a tumor." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "Really?" I asked. The doctor waved his hand dismissively. "If you don't believe me, take this scan to a few more hospitals. Someone else will see it too." Usually, in cases like this, it's only when they open up the head that they realize it's not a tumor but bleeding. They clean it up, stitch it back, and tell the patient and family that the tumor was removed and the patient is fine. The patient doesn't know any better and thinks it was a successful surgery. They have no idea it was a diagnostic error. I nodded, feeling that the doctor made a lot of sense. "Doctor, if you don't mind me asking, with your skills, why are you running a small clinic?" He glared at me. "Don't ask questions you shouldn't. Now, let me get you some medication. Take these first. If we can avoid surgery, we will. With a bit of luck, conservative treatment should be enough. Lily, come with me. I have something to discuss with you," the doctor said, leading her to the back room. I was filled with excitement as I took the medication the doctor prescribed. I moved into Lily's house, where there were 2 rooms. She slept in the master bedroom, and I took the smaller one. During the day, she continued to go out and sell flowers. I didn't stop her or offer her money, respecting her independence. Sometimes, I would accompany her, chatting and laughing as we sold flowers together. When I stayed home, I would prepare a nice dinner for us to enjoy when she returned. Life became incredibly joyful during that time. All my worries seemed to be buried under the fragrance of fresh flowers. The only thing that troubled me was that Lily still hadn't received a cornea transplant. It had been almost a year, and there was still no donor. It's not something to rush. It'll happen eventually, she said as I playfully tapped her nose. You seem so happy, I remarked. Well, you don't have to die anymore, so of course I'm in a good mood, she said, smiling and taking a big bite of her food. You need to live happily. We both need to live happily. I nodded vigorously, even though she couldn't see it. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room in bursts of light and shadow, followed by loud thunderclaps. Lily let out a small yelp of surprise. I quickly got out of bed, put on my shoes, and sat beside her. She was huddled in the corner of her bed, wrapped in a blanket. Are you afraid of thunderstorms? I asked. She nodded helplessly. I moved closer and held Lily in my arms. It's okay. Don't be scared. The moment I embraced her, she stopped trembling, though her grip on my arm was a bit stiff. Thunderstorms aren't scary. Just think of it as fireworks outside, I said, looking at her face. On an impulse, I kissed her forehead. She didn't pull away. Instead, her face turned red. It's more comforting to listen to fireworks in your arms, she said, nuzzling her face against my chest. Promise you'll hold me every time there's a storm? I smiled. Silly girl. She soon fell asleep in my arms. In the morning, I made French toast and looked at the still sleeping Lily. I quietly closed the door and headed to the hospital. The doctor frowned at me. Are you sure you want to forego treatment? I'm sure. This requires a family member's signature to ensure everyone agrees. I don't have any family. Is there anything else I need to do? I nodded. I want to donate my corneas to Lily. Here are her medical details. Also, any usable parts of my body, donate them all. And please, if it's convenient, give this letter to Lily after she can see again. My vision grew increasingly blurry, and the ceiling of the hospital room spun erratically. Memories of my time with Lily flooded my mind. Silly girl, how could you be so naive to be fooled by that doctor? The doctor had taken Lily aside and told her she could get a cornea transplant without a donor, using plastic or silicone instead. He asked for money up front. Lily, lacking funds, didn't even ask me for help. I found out that while artificial corneas exist, they aren't as effective as real transplants and certainly aren't made of plastic or silicone. Only major hospitals can perform such surgeries, not a small clinic like his. I didn't expose the lie because I wanted to give Lily hope. She deserved to live in hope. Lily, I hope that once you regain your sight, you won't be so easily deceived again. Read the letter when your eyes are healed. It's filled with my heartfelt words. As my consciousness faded, I mumbled the contents of the letter. Lily, thank you for making my last days joyful. Meeting you made every day of these past 6 months happy. Unfortunately, I couldn't stay with you longer. I once resented fate, not for making me ill, but for not letting me meet you sooner. Regardless, I found happiness at the end of my life, which is a blessing. Using my eyes to see the world's beauty again is also a blessing, at least for you. Live well, be happy. Farewell. A week later, in the hospital room, a nurse gently removed the bandages from a beautiful girl's eyes. At first, she squinted, hesitant to look at the light outside. Once she adjusted, she tilted her head and smiled, but then she remembered something and began to cry uncontrollably. Her sobs were heart-wrenching, her voice hoarse, yet not a single tear fell. How many years had it been since she last cried?